So let me actually do it like this. So we're going to talk about Splatoon 2 patch version 4 or 5.4.0, which is this one. I'm using the English notes, but the problem is there's one error in the English notes. Like we'll get to it down here. They forgot to put the squeezer nerf separately from the dually nerf. So this is the dually nerf. We'll talk about the squeezer nerf too. We'll get to that. I'll just make sure it's... Yeah, it should be good. I don't know, like, I don't think this patch is, like, major, but I think it's still worth looking at. So, Spotting Shot got, like, a tiny little quality of life thing, which is just, when you're shooting, your feet will be painted better, so it's neat, I guess. You're more of a rat. Cool, I guess. Not really anything mind-boggling, though. 52 got a buff. Increase the radius of ink that lands when you shoot far away by about 27%. That just makes it so if a gal's shooting to paint at the gal's max range, it's going to paint a bit better. I mean, kind of a little bit of a painting buff, so that's neat. I think they kind of do that because a common theme of this patch is they're buffing some of the shorter range weapons in the game and nerfing some of the mid-range weapons. And I'll kind of talk about that more when we get to the mid-rangey stuff. Dapple got a buff, which is better ink efficiency, but I don't really think that's a big deal. It's not really the problem with the weapon. Kind of irrelevant, really. Dualies got the same buff where they're more ink efficient. I think that's a cool buff, actually, because they buffed how well Dualies paint a few patches ago. But I think like that combined with that is kind of neat, because when they nerfed the ink efficiency on rolls on Dualie, normal Dualie, from I think 6% to 9%, it really hurt the V Dualie kit and it hurt the K Dualie kit, because they wanted to kind of play around with their bombs, but because the rolls took so much ink, they kind of couldn't do that anymore. So I think, you know, making the main weapon more ink efficient is a good change for them, so I like that. This is what we're getting into, like the mid-rangey stuff being nerfed. H3 got nerfed, ink consumption increased by 25%. I think that works out such that I think H3 in the current patch has 18 shots, like no ink efficiency, anything, which is a lot, especially for a painting weapon like that. But if you nerf it by 25%, I think that bumps it down to like 13 shots base tank. And a lot of people were like, oh, why did they do that? Blah, blah, blah. I always like kind of praise H3. It's a hard weapon to play, but if you're good with it, it's ridiculous. Because if you just think about the prospect of it's an armor weapon with a bomb that paints really cleanly, has no jump RNG whatsoever, with main power builds, you can have a bad shot of like hitting 2 pellets and they still take 99.8. Like there's all these insane aspects of H3. And all the meanwhile, it's super ink efficient. Because for some reason, H3 is one of the few weapons in this game that it has the heavy ink saver main curve, which means that if you run any main saver, it has a more prominent effect. So that was really done before main power, especially because H3's Tic-Tac did this a lot when he played more actively in like 2019, 18, whatever it was at this point. That if LD proc to like to its full effect and you got 8 subs of main save, sub save, ink recovery, like H3 would never run it, ever. Like with a little bit of investment, you could have double suction, and like because of all the ink recovery, you would basically like you could still shoot like 10 times, like after waiting like a second in ink. It was really, really dumb. That kind of, yeah, getting this kind of nerf is like people are like, oh, but why? It's fair. This weapon does all these things, and it's still super ink efficient. Like they nerfed the ink efficiency on L3 last year in January, I want to say at this point. Like I think that's like that's fine. That's a fair nerf. And I think you can kind of look at more Japan because you're like, oh, but there's like no Western H3s, and like you'd be right, it's basically Obito at like a higher level. Yeah, it's still gonna be really good. I don't think that really hurts it that badly. It just like it's still the kind of weapon that if you're good with it, like you're fine. But if you're not good with it, you know. But this is more like it's more of a nerf address to how Japan plays the game, because the way Japan plays the game right now, especially before this patch, is they basically slap a bunch of mid-rangey weapons that can paint super safely, and they kind of just play a really, really slow neutral where they just paint over you and bomb you out, and the second they get an advantage, they kind of push into you. And the weapons that really abuse that are basically the ones nerfed in this patch. So think CDS, H3, Phaser, and CDS and H3 kind of fall in the same boat of they're these super safe, super like easy to poke mid-range weapons that are hard to really hold forward into because you don't want to get 3-shot by the CDS. You don't want to get one bursted by the H3 kind of thing. I don't know, they can kind of just sit there, H3 spam bombs, gets an armor, they push on their advantage kind of thing. So this patch kind of addresses that. This is inaccurate on the English translation. The Squeezer nerf is just that auto fire, which is like the painting mode on Squeezer. I think its efficiency was like 20% nerf, but that's not really a big deal, because Squeezer only really uses that to paint. And that mode is more ink efficient anyway, so it's kind of whatever. Like, if anything, it only hurts people who don't know how to play Squeezer and are just farming bubbles with the auto fire. That's not really a big deal. It's just like slight nerf to what it is, because Squeezer falls into that mid-range, can kind of play the game super safe and melt people at max range, but also just paint around for its bubble to make a play happen kind of thing. These nerfs only apply to the Skull Chi again. Patch notes are goofy with translation sometimes. So Skull Chi got the nerf. Increase shot spread when firing immediately after jumping in normal stance. That's keywords. By 25%. That just means you have worse jump RNG. If you jump, like, before the jump tech. Like, assume you don't roll, don't do the jump tech. Like, if you're just standing with normal fire onto a Squelcher and you jump, like, you're less accurate. And if that's a nerf, I think that mostly kind of addresses people who fight with Squelchies. You ever see a Squelchy fight? Such that they see a person, they jump at them to like initiate a fight, and once they hit like a bullet or two, they may roll and then do the jump tech to like finish it. A lot of Squelchies do that. So that kind of addresses that and kind of makes that a worse option. You have to be a bit more committal to have good RNG. Or not good RNG necessarily, just you have to be more committal to get cleaner shots on people. You have to do either like the jump tech or like, you know, like the standing fire is a bit inaccurate as is. Like you can still make it work. Like watch Syria, they go crazy with it. So I think it's just making the weapon like a little less consistent, which is fine. Because CDS's weakness, like it's a weapon that does like everything basically. Like its weaknesses are like air quotation bad ink efficiency, which they touched in the last patch to make it a bit worse. And the other weakness it had was bad kill time, but main power kinda, you know, 3 shots now, so that's fun. That's all the main weapon stuff. It's basically just, you know, hitting all those like mid-range super safe weapons a bit, buffing some of the short-range stuff a bit, which is fine, because like the short-range stuff is really like struggling right now. You don't really see this. Like Japan, you see a lot more of the mid-rangey weapons. That's fine. Terps the only sub-weapon that got changed. It's a nerf. Basically, if you throw a roll at Torp, it takes 8 more frames before the white ink effect ends. Like, it's mainly a nerf on Crapid, which is again one of those like mid-rangey weapons that kind of plays super safe, just sits back, rolls a Torp, pokes at you. If you stick your head out, you take 85 damage, that kind of thing. So that's mostly addressed at Crapid really, because it's really the most prominent torpedo weapon in Japan, kinda. So, you know, just a little more downtime, not a huge nerf. Because of all the torpedo weapons in the game, Rapid is the only mid-range one that can actually abuse that. Because all the others are super BB gun. Like, you have Clapple, you have Kunder, and K Jr., which are all like BB guns. Like, they don't really use torpedo to the same extent Rapid does. Rapid, like, I was playing last rotation, you saw me, like, I would do 85 to someone, they would try and run away, they would be out of my range, and I'd say, oh, that's cute. And you roll a torpedo, they die. It's like, okay. Or the Rapid would be like, I think someone's sharking you, throw a torpedo, you poke at them, and then they have to move because they took damage, and the Torps at them. Like, it's really obnoxious and really, really good if you're good with it. I think that nerf is really for Rapid. I don't think it hurts it that badly, it's just like more downtime, which is... That's kind of a recurring thing in this game. When a weapon's like really good, they'll tend to just like make the ink efficiency worse to add more downtime to it, which is fine. Like, if you think about it, like, the H3 Squeezer nerf for ink efficiency stuff Squelchy is like consistency because they nerfed the efficiency of it last time. So like, I kind of like the idea they're going for, right? Where the short-range weapons have better ink efficiency than the mid-range weapons, right? Because that's fair if you think about it. If you have worse range, you may as well have better ink efficiency than the stuff that's longer range than you. I mean, that's always been the case. Like, think Fireshot Pro compared to like a T-Tech or a Junior. Like, Junior has no range, but it has a big ink tank and all the like frame data privilege is just super ink efficient. So I think they're kind of just pushing that a bit more to an extreme, which is like, that's cool. I think that's fine. I like that idea they're kind of going for. And special stuff. So specials. Because of the torpedo nerf, I think they kind of wanted to compensate on the short-range torpedo weapons. So I think that's why they reduced the cost of special on K Jr. Kunder by 10 points. You know, I think Kunder used to be 180. I think, like way back when it was new. Maybe it was 190. I swear it was 180. K Jr. also used to be 190 when it first dropped, I believe. So it's kind of just like undoing that for K Jr. and making Kunder get more armors, which is like, it's fair. If you got Nerf Torps slightly, I think that's okay. Because really you don't see much Kunder play in these days anyway. Like, I play it in TC. I think TC is the best mode by far. I think, like, for spot zone, you'd rather have, like, a Junior or a Zapper H3. I think Kunder's niche is really just TC because of how it can ride the tower and have the shield to stall a bit, and, like, how it regens with armor and torpedo, so it's, like... I think that's fine. A Junior doesn't really mind the Torp nerf that much because it's so ink efficient, and the main weapon has, like, no white ink at all, so it's kind of whatever. Like, if anything, by making K Junior's special cost lower, you're kind of just encouraging it to farm bubbles and go for that. So, you know, cool, I guess. Watch out for those K Juniors getting 8 bubbles a game, because it's gonna happen. And then, like, another Charger nerf, just 220 special. Again, it's just kind of nerfing those super safe weapons that kind of sit in the back and just paint. I don't really have a high opinion on Charger right now. Like, it's a fine weapon, but, like, I don't really think it needed a 220, but if you want to nerf the style, it's just sitting back. Like, if you have, like, a Charger with all those mid-range weapons, then yeah, like, fine, I guess. I guess you can nerf that. Leader, same deal. I don't think it's a particularly strong weapon. Japan likes it a lot in zones, which is fair. That's, like, the one mode. Like, less reigns. Okay. It's less reward for sitting back and spamming, basically. Then CDS gets less reigns, which is fair, because, again, safe. Yeah, just willing to play slow neutral kind of weapon. And I'm pretty sure the bug fixes are just like the stuff you would see on Twitter, where it's like, oh, we can swim on the wall at this really weird angle and get to places we don't intend, the devs don't intend us to be. And that was on Starfish, Manta, Kelp, and Pavilion. Pavilion's like the baller trick on Twitter. Kelp was like, you go from your tree to their spawn, basically. Manta, it's like, you jump over like the bunker to the other side, and Starfish, like, you get into their spawn from the flank. We observed changes after distribution of 5.3 and made adjustments to slightly lower the fighting power of certain weapons that could hold the battle line over a long period of time from further away compared to other weapons. Yeah, like, the patch notes are basically saying we nerfed mid-range stuff for just sitting there and just being super safe compared to all the short-range stuff. That they're basically directly telling you that. You know, like, I like that. I like when the devs are directly like, okay, this patch is trying to address X. We don't like X, we want that to be a little less strong. That's cool. Yeah, adjustments to weapons to increase their competitiveness for the most popular weapons. Like, if you don't want special spam, then it's fine. Although this is like a weird example. I guess they're trying to compensate a nerf to a different weapon. This is a little bit weird, but I think it's okay, because if you nerf Torpedo without like helping these weapons at all, it kind of sucks, because these weapons don't deserve to be nerfed. Yeah, like, I think CDS starters are like the big one. Typical stuff. Yeah. Like, it's not like a game-changing, like, super huge patch, but I like the style they're going for. I think it's fine. I'm pretty content with this patch. I wish I had more buffs. I wish I had buffs to, like, a lot of the bad weapons. Or, like a sprinkler buff here would have been nice. Something like that would have been neat. But, like, this is okay. I'm fine with this. How do the devs gather data about how people are playing? They probably look at, like, X rank and success and usage rate of weapons rate. Because there was that old infographic someone made of X rank top 500 placements. I forget, it was like a few months ago. And I think CDS occupied the biggest, by far, usage rate of any, like, top 500 weapon. It was like, what was it? It was like ridiculous. It was like 30% or something, I believe. Some really high number given it's only a singular weapon in the game. It was very, very big. I don't think the devs are too pleased about that. Because it really is just like that all-arounder weapon, and the weaknesses aren't like so prominent that it's like, oh no, like, this weakness is annoying kind of thing. Like, it can work around its weaknesses through the jump tech, and just being very sparing about how it throws bombs kind of thing. By the nerf fire phone, because Charger kind of just sits back and can spam specials really safely. Like, it's hard to contest the Charger for a lot of short-range weapons. Yeah, pretty much what Oregon said. Like, it's You know, it may not necessarily always be a lower kill count thing, but it's just like just watch the way a lot of like high level Japan plays. It's like a very patient, like so mid range heavy. Like think about the weapons that are used in Japan. Like a lot of people, especially Western players, like casuals, always ask like, why are they buffing T-Tech? T-Tech's a good weapon. But the answer is Japan doesn't use T-Tech. T-Tech isn't good against all the stuff they use. T-Tech is not good against Weezer or H3 or CDS or all of this stuff. Like, it is not good. That doesn't mean T-Tech's bad, it's just not good in that environment. Like, when they're doing all these little buffs to T-Tech to make the main weapon better, like, that's fine. Like, sure, it makes it stronger in like, the hold forward sense in, like, Western lobbies and against, like, kids. Yeah, but in terms of, like, in the grander scheme of the meta, it's fine. Am I surprised about no Nod or Machine Nerf? Not really, because those are more Western-style weapons. Japan doesn't really use those as much. And I think they worry more about Japan than us. And I think you can tell that, right? Because Junior goes untouched. But, like, Junior's strengths and weaknesses are really apparent, so I think they're kind of content with that. Like, Junior's obnoxious in the sense of it can spam 2 bombs and it's super ink efficient, has privileged frame data. But Junior has that actual tangible weakness of it is a BB gun. Its accuracy is horrible. It cannot jump, it cannot do any of that. But if you compare it to, like, H3 super safe range, 2-shot at, like, 3 lines of range kind of thing, it makes more sense. Seijet's also another good example. Seijet is a lot more common in the West than in Japan. Like, Japan doesn't really care about Seijet, because Japan actually knows how to play against Stingray. I had a conversation yesterday with FLC, and it was kind of like, Japan doesn't care about Ray in the sense of, like, they know how to play comps that don't necessarily have anchor weapons. Stingray is obnoxious if you have an anchor weapon, but if you play an anchorless comp with armor, like, you don't care about Ray. Every time you see the opponent Raying, you're basically like, oh, if we're all alive and they're Stingraying, this game is basically a 4v3 because that dude's sitting in the back of the map doing nothing for the next, like, 7 seconds. You just, like, you can pop armor and just, like, aggress off of that because you have numbers advantage. And then you can just overwhelm the people in the front, and then the dude with the Ray is like, now I don't have a Ray and all my teammates are dead, kind of thing. So that's something, like, the West doesn't really, like, totally know how to play against, because people in the West are just so obsessed with, like, we have to have a charger and anchor and all this stuff, you know? And I think it's cool that FT1's basically just like, yeah, whatever, you don't need an anchor kind of thing. Like, those comps are really good. I think anchorless comps are really, really fun. Like, you really don't need one. And if you think about how this game has progressed, and you look at all, like, the anchor weapons in this game, like, they keep nerfing the anchors anyways. Like, pretty much every anchor weapon that's ever been meta has been, like, nerfed really, really hard. That's not to say they're bad. Like, I think Expo's still really good and has a strong niche. But, you know, Charger just keeps getting worse as patches go by. Stuff like Hydra is really awkward and niche. Ballpoint got hit with, like, the most nerfs of anything in the game. Basically, Heavy's kind of... It's not bad, but against a lot of weapons it can't do anything, you know? Like, they're not bad, it's just... You don't need an anchor on a comp, right? But, like, if people are like, oh, where's the siege at nerf, blah blah blah, like... Because... You know, the ray spam's annoying, but if you're running an anchor on your team, of course it's going to be annoying. But if you're running, like, armor or, like, double armor like FT Windows, and you just have a bunch of weapons that can hold forward, like, who cares? They're raying, it's a 4v3, just go kill them! Like, you know? I don't know, just... Whenever people question why X didn't get nerf, you gotta think, like, bigger picture, and it kind of makes more sense. Yeah, I think this patch is pretty good. Nothing, like, groundbreaking, but that's, again, it's fine. We're, like, so deep into the game, I think. Slightly buffing little things and slightly nerfing meta prominent things is fine. Yeah. Gaylorder's mostly just like a zone talk, but it's just, again, reducing the spam of rain, that's about it. Because Japan likes leader in zones. So, that's basically it. Yeah, I'm probably gonna put this part of the VOD with, like, the patch notes and me kind of explaining it, what I think of it, separately on YouTube. I'll do that. Is there anything else this patch I want to mention? Oh yeah, funny one. Just the idea that Cherry H3 got nerfed is funny to me. That weapon's not good. That's really funny to me. Like, nerfing the ink efficiency on L3 or H3 hurts the H3 at the wall of the Wimos. That's just humorous to me. Because Cherry H3 still has a 190 bubble. Like, well, you could make it 180 It paints well, but it's not doing anything with those bubbles. Funny to me. I think Wall has good synergy on H-Race, because it can't do anything with the bubble blur itself. If it had different special, then it could actually be like neat. Like if it had like Wall Buoy like 52, then cool, but it doesn't, so. Yeah, you basically counter Ray by knowing that there's a dude sitting in the back of the map not doing anything. It's a different story in the sense of like, if you lost a teammate and it's like a 4v3 and the dude starts raying, then that's a really disadvantaged fight for you because they have the laser advantage to take the 3v3 and just, you know, win it, because that kind of thing. Like, in the context of that, yeah, Ray's more annoying. But if you know the dude's sitting in the back of the map and not in the fight at all, and it's kind of irrelevant, and you like get your own special to deal with that, like an armor to deal with the Ray, so you can win the team fight, then that's fine. You just have to play around it, really. Which is like, that sounds like a very forehead thing to do, but you kind of just, that's how you play the game. You have to like look at the opponent's comp and be like, okay, what do they do? How do we deal with that? Kind of thing. I don't know, people see Ray and they're just like, oh, Unga Bunga, they're just stalling and spamming. Like, you know, just think of the Ray as an opportunity that if you didn't die on the fight before that, you can take advantage of that kind of thing. I think that's something a lot of like mid-level people kind of struggle with. Because they kind of view the game like, if you have a game with like 2 C-chats, they're viewing it as like some war of attrition, like, oh, I have to have a Ray to counter their Ray, or like, I need an armor so I can counter Ray their Ray without dying consistently, but like, you just say screw it all together and just not play C-chat. That's totally good. I don't know, I wish people were more like creative, stuff like that. Yeah, I think that kind of covers patch notes and shenanigans. Say hi to YouTube if you want. I don't know. Creativity in a comp game? Miss you with that. Yeah, right? Crazy. I'm just gonna copy paste what the team that is winning does? Crazy. Yeah, well, yeah.